Our first session is about people, because success in farming isn't just only about genetics and technology, it's also about resilience, well-being and strong communities. So Michael Williams is the General Manager of Fat Farmers, a program that connects farming communities through fitness and well-being initiatives. His passion for giving back comes from growing up on a family farm in Adelaide, and he's on a mission to make rural health a priority. Joining him is Jacqui Suares, OAM, a woman of many talents. From dairy farming in Victoria to being the CEO of a major disability support organisation, she's the parent of a daughter with a disability and has been recognised with the Order of Australia Medal for her services to the community. So let's give a big Herd 25 welcome to Michael and Jacqui with strategies for achieving goals and nurturing a happier, healthier you.
Yeah, I might need the clicker. Thank you. So thanks everyone for joining us today, and I did just want to give you a bit of a language warning. If you've got sensitive ears, which I don't really think is going to be an issue, just shut them. For those who know me well, I'm prone to write a verse or two for special occasions. This one wasn't written for this occasion, but it was written for a very dear friend of ours, for one of those milestone birthdays that some of us prefer to forget about. And you just need to know, this couple refer to each other quite affectionately by their first initials. She calls him C, he calls her B, and their eldest daughter is called Emma. So with apologies to A.V. Patterson, this is the man from Bungadore. There were jitters amongst the locals, for the word had passed around that a Kiwi from across the ditch was on his way. With his precious bee beside him and 4 billy lids in tow, he'd left the land of the long white cloud to give our Oz a go. Now we all knew Kiwi farmers like to spruik that they're the best at growing grass and filling vats, so we put them to the test. With drought and floods and cricket plagues and the Heytesbury flaming dust, he struggled on, defied us all, and never seemed too fussed. We soon discovered he liked a pint of anything that's cold, red, white or amber, yours or his, even better when it's old. He'll drink until the cows come home and then go back for more. It truly is a wonder B hasn't shown him to the door. Which might have happened one fine morn after the night before. With heavy head and churning tum, our man did face the dawn. The cows all yarded and finally milked, his body racked with pain. My God, he cried, the milk's all gone, it's down the bloody drain. We've stood together side by side and fought the roaring flames. We manned the pumps in choking smoke. Anzac spirit still remains. But should you need a fire truck, he's really not your man. Recalling secret access codes is not part of his plan. While a good Queen's English we all speak, a cultural divide exists between our native tongues, some words we can't abide. His potluck teas we took on board, they are a local hit. But chili bins and jandals, Lord, it's time that they were quit. His wedding gallop down the aisle had Emma at full canter, all assembled smiling merrily amongst the happy banter. He took his seat on wooden pew, a silent teardrop broke. Hurrah, we thought, he's one of us, a sentimental bloke. To Larpent soon, with precious B, where all the best folk dwell. An Aussie now, true blue I'd say, it's turned out rather swell. For you couldn't find a better mate if you searched from shore to shore than Christopher or just plain C, a man from Bungadore. The picture on the screen is as close as I could get to a picture that hangs in the speedway at Bungadore. And it's a memory of a bushfire. And those of us who live in rural Australia live through the summer with constant anxiety about bushfires. This one started on a really unremarkable day, and I remember I was at home doing registrations for Horsley in Australia in the old days where you did them on paper and stuck a photo of the heifer calf. And I was, you know, one of those days where you just sit inside, and I wasn't manning what the weather was like until Ross flew in the door and said, "Have you had a look out the bloody window?" And I said, "No." And he said, "There's a huge fire and it's right over there," whatever. So we'd always had a plan. Every time we moved farms, the first thing we did was assess the risk of fire and what we'd do, and both of us knew what our jobs was. Mine was to get the things together that we needed, the paperwork, the precious things, and the pets, and leave, because we were on the end of a dead-end road. So I did that, and I went to school and picked up our youngest daughter, who was mortified because I'd left the chooks behind. I'm quite sure how I was supposed to put all the chooks and the cats and the dogs in the car, but anyway. So I headed into town. Ross went to our new Kiwi neighbours and stood on the roof with Christopher and saved their house in that fire. One of the things that we all knew was that in the southwest of Victoria, the wind was coming from the north, and it always swings about 4 o'clock. And you know that if you've got a fire front that's headed south and the wind swings to the west at 4 o'clock, you're going to have a hell of a hot fire front coming at you. And that's what happened. The Bungadore truck was trapped, and it was only that we had a local people in that truck who knew where the drains were to be able to get out of harm's way. For the next 3 days, all of the community worked tirelessly, going around putting out stumps that were still burning, repairing water pipes, fixing fences, making sure stock were all right, and they were exhausted. And eventually I said to Ross, "I think we need to get everyone to stop." And so we invited all the locals to our little shed, and we had a barbecue. And as the night wore on, one by one, the men started to talk about what they'd lived through. And it really struck me how important it is when we have catastrophic events to get people to stop and to talk and to even get to know each other better, which is what happened. After that night, the community decided that it was really pretty silly that they didn't do this more often. So for the last 30 years, that community has hosted what we call a potluck tea in honour of our Kiwi friends. And they get together every month and they meet and they talk, and it's been a great opportunity to get people together, to get to know each other, to include new people as they move into the district, because in rural areas those opportunities are becoming a little bit hard to come by. So what we learnt from that was out of even the worst things, really good things can come out of them. And we think of our fellow farmers and people in northern New South Wales and Queensland at the moment, and hope that equally for them their recovery is good and that some good things come out of their current situation. Many years ago, I'm a nurse initially and a dairy farmer. If you could pick 2 careers that are not good for your back, that's probably it. So many years ago I had back surgery to treat chronic sciatica. Instant success from the pain that I was in, but I was really impatient to make sure that I was fit and active enough to prune the rose garden, which was pretty extensive, because otherwise it meant Ross was going to take to it with a chainsaw, which was probably not going to be good for either of us. So when I pressed my neurosurgeon, what can I do to get fit? His answer was really simple and straightforward. Put your shoes on and walk. It's not expensive, it's not difficult, just do that. And that's really stuck with me because I think when we talk about health and fitness, we sometimes overcomplicate it by thinking we have to do all these amazingly fancy things, when actually put your shoes on and walk is the best advice I ever had. Later surgery to remove a troublesome lump in my throat, which was supposed to be benign but turned out to be thyroid cancer, was another challenging situation, and certainly that C word has been dogging our family for some time now. But the worst part about that was what I wasn't prepared for, that I lost my singing voice. And singing to me was an important part of who I was, and I wasn't prepared for that. And I guess the lesson I learned from that was how very quickly things that are precious to us, abilities, capacities, can be taken away from us very quickly without us really ever appreciating them. And so the graph on the screen isn't actually my graph, but it's just to give you an example of, by then I was at the end of a very progressive series of health issues, and my blood pressure was the last of the problems, and so I did one of those, 24-hour monitoring type things, and went back to the doctor to get the results, and she showed me the picture, and from about 12 o'clock till after 4 o'clock, my blood pressure was hovering in the 180 systolic range, which is pretty not good. And so she said, let's talk through this graph. Tell me what happens at 6 o'clock. And she said, that's when stuff starts to happen. I said, well, I get up and I go and milk the cows. And at 7:45, I'm back in the house to get ready to go to work. And at 9 o'clock, I'm at my desk and someone makes me a cup of coffee. And she said, what happens at 4 o'clock? And I said, well, that's when I go home and I get changed and I milk the cows again. And she said, what happens at 6 o'clock? And I said, well, I have my first glass of red wine and I cook dinner. And what happens at 8 o'clock? And I said, oh, actually, that might be the second glass of red wine, which was all kind of funny, but by then her eyebrow was raised on one side. Funny, but not funny, because when you verbalise what your habits have become, it actually hits home that I'm a reasonably intelligent person, and that's probably not a great habit. And my GP said to me, you need to realise that your lifestyle, what you're doing, is actually slowly killing you. And you need to take responsibility and do something about that. So I just say to you, what's your, we're in a room of nerds. What's your health data telling you, and what are you doing about it? Do you even know what it is? This is our Mia. She's not a morning person, takes after her mother. She was born with an unknown disability, but when she was in her mid-30s, we did some genetic testing and they revealed that she has a condition called monosomy 1p36 deletion syndrome, which is a very big mouthful. It's a very rare condition. There's not very many people in Australia with hers. And she's having a morning cuddle with our banjo and having a coffee. Her initial medical prognosis was very poor. She had heart surgery when she was 2 and suffered constant bouts of pneumonia. The paediatrician's prediction was that she wouldn't walk and she wouldn't talk, and we probably needed to consider putting her in an institution, and that wasn't something we were ever prepared to consider. Her speech development was really, really slow. And is a much larger conversation, but she did walk when she was 6. She was treated with the same expectations as all of our other children, and she was included in everything that we did. She sat in wool bales while Ross saw sheep. She sat on a chair at the end of the pit while we milked, and she learnt some interesting language, as you will all be familiar with. I openly admit I'm a rescuer and a fixer, and it's not in my nature to give up. Raising and supporting a child with a disability brings many joys, but it also brings many challenges. And this one taught me a huge lesson about what you can't control. We had a home help lady used to come and get her ready of a morning while I was still at the dairy, and I came in one morning and everybody in the house was in the kitchen looking a little bit bedraggled and a bit frazzled, and said, we can't get Mia out of bed and we don't know what to do. And this had been going on for a long period of time, and I spent a lot of time studying behaviour management as a disability professional, and I tried everything I could think of to resolve this issue of her not wanting to get up on a particular day of the week and go to work. And so I went up and I tried to help her, and I had things thrown at me, and it was just really a really bad day. And in the end, in sheer frustration, I sat on the bed and looked at her very limited verbal skills to reply, but just said, "Mayor, I don't understand what's wrong. You have to try and tell me what it is, because I can't fix something that I don't know." And she just looked at me and she said, "I hate fucking Tuesdays." I'm like, right, how am I going to fix this? And I realised that I couldn't. I cannot shift the calendar. I cannot change the days of the week. So we moved on. But it was a really good lesson in actually in life there's some things that we cannot fix and we cannot change, so we just have to move past them and concentrate on the things that we can. Thank you, Fiona. The lovely Fiona came to our farm a couple of years ago and took some photos, and at the time I thought, I don't know what I'm going to do with that. But there you are. That's what I did with it. I saw this version of the Serenity Prayer, and I'm assuming most of you know the Serenity Prayer. It's got lots of different variations these days, but I saw this one and it really tickled my fancy. Because I've always done this. I feel very blessed to have had parents who fostered a love of music and encouragement to learn the many instruments over the years that I've learnt. And when I say, actually, it really wasn't optional, it's just what we did in my family. I remember Ross telling me years ago that Dad had told him the day we were married to pay particular attention to what she's playing. And if she's ever playing Handel's Largo, just leave her alone for a few hours. And I realised that this was how I managed really difficult times, was I would just sit and play. And then I came across this notion that this has actually got a word, and it's called, or got a name, and it's called to psychologically detach. And it's now considered very important for people's mental health. There's a researcher in New Zealand that found that it has great benefits: less fatigue, more positive emotion, greater overall well-being, improved relationships and less conflict. All this time I was just doing it without realising it was actually a thing. So my suggestion is always think about the things that for you help you to detach from the worries that we all carry. It might be going for a walk, it might be doing some exercise, it might be doing craft work, or it might be like me and play some music. So in closing, the main things I wanted to say was try and make sure that you stay connected. Do get some regular exercise. Planning's always been really important. If you haven't got a plan, well, you're not really planning. If you're not planning, you're planning to go nowhere, really. And it doesn't matter what it is, but planning is important. And then the main thing is to say, enjoy your life. As Fiona quoted just recently in a podcast, life isn't a dress rehearsal. Or do what my granddaughter does and dance while no one's watching, even it is on a silage bale in a tutu. Thank you, and I'm going to hand over to Michael.
The big thing is the mental health side of it. I think obviously they're getting fit, they're active, but it's the mental side of it. I think in farming especially, you're on your own a fair bit, so it gives them a chance to catch up while also working on their health and fitness. So it works really well.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Jacqui. It's a hard act to follow. I'm a newbie to this, and I'm glad that Jacqui was here to guide me along. Thank you very much for having me. You're the largest audience I've ever talked to, actually. So I'm Michael from Fat Farmers, as you have been introduced, and I'm just going to check my clickers, and there we go. So you've just seen on the video our mission pretty much is to inspire farmers and communities to look after their health and well-being through physical activity. And basically we look at encouraging towns to start a fat farmers fitness group of any level, whether it be a walking group, a running group, a Pilates group, or a gym-based group, it doesn't matter, just as long as you look at doing something, regular activity and coming together, which I'll talk a bit more about in a minute. So, as you saw on the video, that was founded in Yorke's Peninsula. Sorry about all the grain in the video. Grain farmers in Yorke's Peninsula at South Australia. In about 2012, 3 farmers decided that, their wives decided for them, I think, that they were snoring too much after they stopped playing sport and not doing too much activity other than being on their machinery. So they decided to get together in the local gym, which was really only frequented by women at that time. So the men started going there, the 3 blokes got together and started doing workouts, and one of them walked in one day and yelled out, "Hey, you fat F people, farmers," and basically the name stuck to Fat Farmers. So 12 years and coming along, we've decided to keep that name, even though a few people decided that it probably wasn't too appropriate, but we've had overwhelming success and support behind that name. So we're about connecting communities as well. So it's about getting together, holding local events, as I said, could be any sort of form of exercise, but also bringing the communities together by the way of events, attending events like this, bringing in speakers to hold talks and encourage people to just, again, to look after their health and well-being through doing some sort of formal activity. I should have bought my glasses because I can't actually quite read what I've written there, but I know it off by heart, I'm pretty sure. So also partnering with fitness partners as well is important for us, community partners. I just can't really walk into a town and tell a town what they should be doing, because that's not how it works, as you all know, especially when some towns are very cliquey. So the best way for me to do that is involve the community people, champions in the town. The best way to start a group of activity in a town is find the champions, and there's always champions in the town, whether they be fitness-based, farmer-based. Have a chat to them, tell them what we're all about, and as soon as it clicks and they get it, and that they say, let's get on board, and they start a group and they invite their friends and their mates, and that seems to be the best way to go into a town to encourage them to get a Fat Farmers group started. Ambassadors, as I was saying, we've got a few ambassadors, but also we consider our champions in every town an ambassador of what we're doing, and without that, there's no encouragement or inspiration to the groups to keep going and get together. Development, again, diverse activities. We're open to all sort of activities. Again, it's just about keeping active and doing something on a regular basis. And inclusive, of course, as well. Just because we say our group is Fat Farmers, you don't have to be fat and you don't have to be a farmer to be involved, and you don't have to be male. So we have quite diverse groups. Ages, I think the youngest in one of our groups is just under 20 years old, and the oldest is 70 years old. And we have quite a lot of women joining our groups as well, and We've even had some women to say we want a Fat Farmers women's group separately, so some towns are even doing separate days with different groups. So it's great to see everybody wanting to get involved from all aspects. I'm just going to flick forward to this photo, which I'm going to read some tips from my card at the moment rather than read this. That's what I like to do. I don't really come too prepared to these things. I like to try to talk from the heart and my experience and what I'm seeing on the ground and the results that we're seeing from doing what we do. This photo, though, real quick, is showing the main picture in the middle is pretty much every year we have a group come together. We have everybody come together, I should say, from all the towns. And yes, we are predominantly in South Australia because that's where we started, but we are growing interstate, and I'll explain that in a moment. Every year we have some sort of a get-together, and this one at the moment is called the City to Bay, which is a marathon, basically. So running from the Adelaide CBD down to the Glenelg Beach coast. And we have about 80-odd farmers and families sometimes, and kids join and do that walk run of different variation lengths, and they come down to the bay and we meet there, and then we have our sort of like a bit of a gala lunch awards event just to bring them all together once a year. We want to bring that into other things like maybe having an Olympics type Fat Farmers Olympics once a year and keep inspiring people to be involved. Other things we do to keep them inspired is to do challenges, like we just had the 30-second rowing challenge. So every town put in their fastest speed lengths within 30 seconds, and we're just sort of trying to keep them competitive, which they are very competitive when one town doesn't want the other town to win an award or a challenge, which is great because it inspires people to still be involved and give them another reason to get together every week and do something. So I'm just going to back up and just tell you a little bit about a story that I've seen. So I started volunteering for Fat Farmers about a year and a half ago when I retired, and I realised, growing up on a small farm, I did realise the issues with farming and what the social connections and lack of. So I started volunteering for Fat Farmers a year and a half ago, etc. And then all of a sudden last year they offered me a job. So I thought, well, if I'm going to work again, I'll do something that I really love, because I actually saw firsthand the results and the feelings you get from helping people in their communities. So I was living down the southeast for a while, and I'd started a group in one of the towns there, and we're really about connection, right? So it's about reconnecting and bringing communities together, especially when farmers and community people start isolating themselves. So the way I saw it, and we do now very much, is that when people stop playing footy, cricket, netball, whatever sport, maybe if they were a part of a team, which a lot of people in the country towns are and do, they lose that sporting camaraderie. And I think that it's important to reconnect those people to get that feeling back again. So I did this down in the town. I found some local champions, a gym. We started a group. They knew exactly who they should invite to this first pilot session of a gym workout together under Fat Farmers. And they all decided, well, we're going to pick Joe and Jack and whoever, then people that they especially knew were isolating themselves from the community that they wouldn't see for 2 or 3 weeks at a time, and isolating for various different reasons. So we started the groups, and a couple of them reluctantly came, but they did, which is great. The wives pushed them, which is awesome, because getting the wives behind it generally has been a great thing for us to help their blokes do something regularly. So we started the group, and then after 2-3 weeks, as you all know, it takes 2 to 3 weeks to get a new habit. We found that the people that were isolating themselves from this community were the very first people then to rock up on the Friday morning session. And then Thursday night, the WhatsApp message would go out, and that was that 1 or 2 people that were reluctant and isolating were the first ones to say, who's in tomorrow, thumbs up, thumbs down. So it just sort of goes to show how the impact of bringing that sporting camaraderie feeling again, that belonging to a team. They get T-shirts, they feel like they're a part of a team again. So I sort of get goosebumps where I talk about that, because I saw it firsthand, and then I was getting a lot of, I don't do it anymore, I've blocked my phone number, but I was getting a lot of calls from the wives of these farmers. And they were calling me to say, thank you very much, Michael, for bringing fat farmers to our town. My bloke really needed that. She said, one of them said to me, comes home in the morning after the workout, sits on the edge of the bed and talks about what he did, who he spoke to. And this is, remember, someone that was isolating and stopped mingling with these people, his old mates from footy days. He's even talking about now buying a boat, and he would have never done that. So it's just sort of humbling to know that we've helped one person especially just sort of reconnect and get inspired again about doing things off farm and connecting with people. So hopefully we don't sort of go down the track of talking about mental health, and we're not clinical in that section, but we know that physical activity, the connection piece, offering support to communities is obviously, there's a byproduct of mental health and less anxiety, and we just hope that that changes some people's lives and helps them. I think I'm running into Q&A time here, so I'll be very quick. So basically, again, what we're trying to tell people is to, help look out for each other. So you guys, especially in the industry that you're in, you see farmers, you talk to people, you talk to communities. It's all about recognising and looking out for people, inspiring them to do something to reconnect and bring the communities together and keep the individuals, especially ones isolating, active. So I suggest, again, looking out for people, suggesting things like a Fat Farmers Group. We're a non-for-profit, by the way. It's not a business. We're seen to be a charity, hopefully, when we get that status. We rely very much on sponsorship, and I'm also pitching now to the government to get some funding for them to support us for more preventative health issues. The other thing I was going to say was the vision for Fat Farmers, other than inspiring people to get together, reconnect, do some exercise every week, is doing pop-up health checks. So again, we all know the communities, especially rural communities, lack easily access to appointments for basic skin checks, for example. We do a lot of skin checks with the UniSA at field days and shows. 2 weeks ago, I went to have a skin check for you guys, especially. Well, actually, what I did is last week got something cut out of my neck, especially for you guys. No, not really. But I did get a biopsy done because I hadn't had a skin check for 2 years, and it's just, you never know. So we want to bring more of those pop-up random health check, mobile health checks to towns, to show days, because we think those communities need them, and that's something we're pitching towards the government to help us do. Even though there's some of them out there already, you can never have too many. So that's pretty much all from me. I think I'll wrap up. I was just going to show you, we have got over 25 groups in South Australia and Victoria, and what's today? Yesterday, Monday, we started one in St George in Queensland. So 25 groups in South Australia, Victoria, 3 in Victoria, Mansfield, Lismore and Warwick Benil. Hope I've said that correctly. Predominantly in South Australia, but now growing all over Australia, which will be wonderful. So if anybody has any interest to talk to us, to encourage someone to start a group, please direct them to us. It's very simple. We can even provide some funding for groups to get started, provide T-shirts, and it's really not that hard. It's just starting a new habit. Do something every week, and as we're all guilty of, I went for a walk this morning to make sure that I practice what I preach. Put the sneakers out, put the shorts out, put the shirt out, ready to go, your alarm goes off, you get up, you've got no excuse, do it in the morning, go for a walk, go for a workout, and you're going to feel magic for the rest of the day. I think that's all I have. Thank you for listening to me. I can't see any of you, by the way, the lights, and I'm sweating. Thank you.
Michael. Stay here. Thank you so much, Michael. Jacqui, would you like to come back to the stage, please? Michael, Jacqui, thank you so much. Is Jacqui here? Oh, yep, sorry. It is really hard to see people when you're on stage. I apologise. Jacqui and Michael, thank you so much for your inspiring presentations, but not only that, but your work for supporting and helping to strengthen our rural communities. We do have 5 minutes and 41 seconds to take questions from the audience or from Slido, and I'll ask those questions to you, and it'd be great to hear your answers. So, the room, while you guys are thinking about it, we do have a question online. So on Slido, Michelle has asked us, what is the role of service providers in promoting connection in agricultural communities? And I'll start off with, no one wants to go first? Jacqui.
I'll just say what I think, and we see this at home. I think most of you know that Ross works as a stock agent, and I reckon probably 30% of his time is actually a counsellor. And luckily, because I feed him constantly with information about services or activities that are out there, I hope when he's talking to people, he's well prepared to pass on information about where they might go for help or to connect with services if they need it. And I think the people in this room, you all have a wonderful opportunity, and I'm sure, I know that many of you do the same thing, where when you're there talking to farmers, provide that support. And as I said, a lot of things that we can do. Once upon a time, we had a lot of community existing sort of community structures that helped support people, and as time goes on and as people leave rural communities, or we don't have things like small rural schools is the thing I particularly noticed, where people always came together, there's not those opportunities that once upon a time there was. And I think we all have to try and figure out ways that we can get people reconnected in the ways that things used to happen that don't perhaps so much anymore. So I think we can all play a part in that.
Well said. Thank you very much, Jacqui. Michael?
To provide us, one of our sponsors is Rabobank and many other ag companies, etc. That's a bank, obviously. Look, as another tool in the kit bag, as far as I understand, of talking to people and showing concern and community involvement, talking about things like fat farmers initiatives, getting together. So I see it as everybody's role now is to look out for everybody, each other in a way, right? So, and refer them on. And also our goal is to have a lot of our ambassadors and champions in each town, and some of them are, work for the local nutrient or whatever it is, to provide them with mental health training to some level. So our goal is to fund those people if they want to do it. Our ambassadors, our champions in each town, do a little bit of mental health awareness training, just to spot signs, ask the right questions, and then refer them on to Lifeline, Blue on Blue if they need to. But I would like to see that more done in the ag providers industry as well, by companies training more of their staff. And I know some do, but it would be great if the government especially got behind doing that as well.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Michael. We have a question from Louise Sunderman online. Not a question, actually, just sent the Fat Farmers website to my husband. Would be great to have one in my community. Thank you for that comment, Louise. There might be other people in this audience who are just thinking, wow, this sounds absolutely amazing. What would be the first step that either of you would recommend for starting a community initiative like this? It's just literally to send you an email, to find a partner in the town. What would you recommend as the first step to take? Michael?
Pretty much again what you said. If it's yourself, decide to maybe talk to a couple of people in the community, say this is a thing that's one of the options to get people motivated and excited about something. Start talking to another champion or two, find a local, what you're going to do, what you're going to work out, what would be a good way to start. But if you just start a walking group and it evolves. We had a physio in one of our towns pilot this whole thing. Some people like to pilot it first before they make it public or launch it, just invite a few select people and see if it takes off. The physio in Narracourt, they started off with 4 people in the physio gym every week, and after 6 weeks they had 25 people, so they had to move to the big gym in town, and it just exploded to like 30 people a week. So I suggest reaching out to us, talking between yourselves and saying, well, hey, what can we do? What facilities do we have? And ask me for some money, because I can give you some money.
Thank you very much. If there are any further questions from the audience? No? Okay. Well, thank you very much, Michael and Jacqui, for all of your work. Have a seat back down and enjoy the rest of the audience conference. Thank you.